Hello. Well, you can see I'm surrounded by soft pastels, and I wanted to talk to you about color mixing, and particularly color mixing of neutrals. When you think about the standard color wheel, where you think of red, yellow, blue, orange, green, violet, you're kind of taught to think in Crayola colors, right? If you imagine those colors in your head and then look around the room, you'll seldom see these pure colors. They're almost always more neutrals or mixed. So I wanted to work with you on browns, beiges, and grays and how to have some real control over them and understand what you're doing. So you see here that I have a yellow and a couple of types of red. And one of the first things on color mixing that I'd like for you to do is take these colors from your box. I don't know which red or which yellow you've got, but I'd like for you to become familiar with the types of orange that red and yellow make. I then would like for you to be familiar with the types of other secondary colors. So if you have a couple of reds, and you have a couple of blues, you should, with your pastels, make yourself like a color chart so you know which red and which blue makes a brownish purple versus a really grape purple. So I am experimenting here with different kinds of oranges. Now, when I do this, that red is really intense. Try putting down the lightest color first and then adding a little bit of the darker color to it, and you'll find that you get, you won't have to add so much yellow to that. So when I look at these different colors of red, and it might not be as apparent to you as it is to me here, but I can see this type of red here kind of, let's find an orange that's close. If I have a bright orange in my set, this bright orange is most like this red and the yellow. And I know that because if I take the orange and I blend it together, actually that orange is a little bit brighter, isn't it? But I can see that it's in the same range. This orange, which looks like an orangey brown, would go with the second combination that I did, which would have been the magenta. Many times you can tell the parent colors because they look good with the secondary colors. They just kind of flow together. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a different orange, same yellow, and mixing it up. And I'm finding if I want kind of a yellowish, an orangey brown, that this orange brown has these as parents. This orange, bright orange, has the red as a parent. Those as a parent, for instance. So if you go through your pastel box and just do your possible secondary colors, that way when you use this orange, you know which red and yellow will automatically go with it instead of clash with it. Alright, the reason I'm saying that is because I recently gave an assignment where I suggested that people work with an OGV color wheel. And an OGV color wheel is orange, green, and violet. So I'm just pulling out a few possible combinations here, and that's actually, I have some bright oranges, I have some various colors of green from light to dark, and then I have a couple of violets. And because my violets are sometimes a harder color to find, I have some blue violets and red violets in here. Okay, now if you mix your colors and you understand what you're doing, you won't get muddy colors. So I already know that I have red, yellow, and blue as my parent colors, and then it's kind of good to know exactly which orange that particular red and yellow make. It's good to know which green these two make, and it's good to know which violet these two make. If I have a landscape that has green hills, orange clay, and violet shadows, or pale violet sky, these colors really would not show up in that landscape much, except as accent colors. So I might have an accent of red somewhere, an accent of blue somewhere, but these colors would become your primary colors and RYB are kind of accent colors. So what I had suggested that you do is that you form a triad of orange, green, and violet. Notice they form a triangle or a triad there. RYB is your common triad. A triad is just like three notes of color played together that work well. OGV is an uncommon triad. So an uncommon triad will have kind of uncommon colors. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to do this with my orange, green, and violet. And because we're working in landscapes, I'm going to first try the darker orange, green, and violet. So the darkest violet, the darkest orange, which might seem like an orange brown to you, and the darkest violet. So as I come through here with my violet, I'm going to then very lightly create a range where I have a lot of violet pigment here, not much violet pigment here. I want to see what happens when I make what an orange violet looks like. So I take this brown orange and I mix it this way, and I'm instantly getting a nice chocolatey brown. I will get a little bit more of a earthy brown here, and over here I can get a little bit more of a plum shadow. Now this is almost too dark to see what you've got, and a lot of browns and grays are a lot lighter than this, and so when you add a white, it's called a drawdown. So in actuality, this color here may end up being the side of a tree, a little lighter, and I might need to put a shadow on the side of that tree. So I can use that violet like that. So adding white to this will give you your lighter neutrals. You'll get beiges and you'll get pale grays. Now, if I were to take this purple before I got started and think, well, I really would like to have something a little bit brighter, a little punch of color, I might take this orange instead of the darker orange, and just before I even get started, see what happens when I mix those two. You know, to me, it's I personally prefer this a little bit more. The color is a little bit brighter, less wintry, more like a fall color. So when I start mixing these hues together, if I do it perfectly in the center, I will get a brown that automatically goes with all the other colors. So then if I were to take my light or white, and in this case I think I'm going to use a real pale lemony light. Find a lemony light, as though sunlight was on it. Okay, so this is a little paler. The drawdown is just adding a lighter color so that when I blend it, my eyes aren't fooled by, you know, a really dark tone. So I'm starting to see I have a lot of different beiges in there that I can work with. So I can do the same thing with the green. If I have green like this versus a green like this, and I'm making it real light at the edge, and then I'm going to come in with, let's say, the same purple. If I have an almost night scene, or I have trees silhouetted against the sky, you know, I can get grays that are so dark there that you can barely see the color. They look almost black. They're a colorful black. That's called a chromatic black. Much better than the flat black you got in your pastels. So I can see a little bit of lavender there, a little bit of gray. And this color right here, I'm going to use the same one. And I don't need to use much because it is rather dark and would overpower it. But I can start to see in here, I'll get various tones of green, like dull green, like I could have a shadow on a tree. So what you can do is play around with which orange, which green, and which violet you want. I'm going to choose a blue violet, I think. That's too blue. Okay, one of the things is I will show you this in a little bit. This violet is more appropriate. Depending on how light or dark that secondary color is that you get, you can have a lot of possibilities with it. Now, I also want to say that you can blend colors, right? My green doesn't have to be one green in my pastel box. If I want to split the difference between the two greens, and let's say I have a dark green, but somewhere in that piece I'm going to need a light green. And I want to use these two colors, but I need to find some more colors in between. Use the in-between color here as your main color. And so what I would have to do here when I was working through my palette is I'm going to have some of the bright green here. I'm going to use some of the dark green here. And I'm going to get myself a nice intermediate green going on. And then if I need shadows on that intermediate green, I might use this purple here and the shadows, which means that if I take that color and mix it into that intermediate green color, I'm getting some really nice grays and deep tones in here. What this means, though, is that if I have a landscape that includes this color, I can then go into that landscape with this particular green and this particular green, and it will automatically go with the rest of the landscape. So, you know, all I'm doing here is kind of mixing my green to begin with, and then for accents, pulling out these greens that I might need later on for trees or whatever. Same thing with your purple. You know, your purple here can then go in here, and if I decide to put purple shadows in here, I can put a lot of purple in there before people wonder, you know, what is that weird color doing there? Because your eye will just blend it in with the rest. So what happens on this is that if you carefully choose whatever your orange is and whatever your violet is and whatever your green is, depending on the preference. Now on this one, you can probably tell when you put your original parent colors together whether they're going to work or not. But what I'd like for you to do is find out what an orange green looks like and what color of orange you need to get a green that doesn't look just weird, but gives you a really nice gray or brown tone. When you have colors that mix like this and you start getting your grays and your browns, you would have to actually draw that in, right? And then you can kind of see where your beiges are. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is this OGV works great if you want to just neutralize everything and make it seem very, very quiet. But it's also great for sunsets because you might have these deep violet shadows and these like bright orange skies on the sunset. What I would recommend here, though, is let's say I want to have a really striking yellow-orange for my sunset. And it is a little bit more on the where's the space? No, when I mix up my orange, I want the orange to have like a yellow glow to it. So I might, you know, say, okay, I'm going to use a really, really bright yellow-orange there. If you have yellow-orange over here, you want to make sure you have the opposite over here. Like maybe if you had this be a blue-violet. Now the reason I'm saying that is orange and blue are opposites. Violet and yellow are opposites. If I did that, I would get really nice, perfect neutral tones. Like, think the sky might be lit up a real bright yellow-orange, and the shadows might be deep blue-violet, but the trees and other things that get kind of gray and hazy when you have a sunset would be these colors in here. So if you get a color that you really like I really like the yellow-green, be aware of balancing that out. It's not just like any kind of green works with all the other colors. This is very flexible. For instance, I noticed I added yellow to the orange here. I added yellow to the green here. If I like those colors, and I know I'm going to try to do an orange, green, violet, it may be that I want to figure out what a yellow violet looks like. Well, it's going to be a very dull violet, a very shadowy violet. And what I have here is a color that may first appear to look kind of gray to you. Let's see what this one does. Yeah, that's not a yellow violet. That's more of a blue violet. Okay, this color right here, that's a yellow violet. It's a dull violet. So I'm going to take a violet and I'm going to add some yellow to it. Let me get one that might actually work here. I'll add some yellow to it, and depending on the yellow that you add to it, let's add a little bit more of this tone to it. There we go, starting to get there. So, see, you can tell real differences in colors when they're next to each other. So what is happening here is that I might be able to get enough of a, I want to solve this problem now. That's funny. Let me see what this yellow does. Okay, a yellow violet here. It may be that this kind of gray here, if you have a really strong yellow orange and you've got a really strong yellow green, this color right here might be a really good way to temper those colors. So let me find another kind of color that is already yellow orange. This is close enough, I suppose. Yeah. So in this case, this is still an orange, green, violet. It's just a yellow orange, a yellow green, and violet with some yellow in it. The reason I'm saying this is that these colors will now really kind of automatically go together, and the browns and grays you find when you're mixing this color wheel up will be the browns and grays that you will see under these light circumstances. I am not suggesting though that when you start getting these grays, you can't come in and pop a little color in there. However, this can be very useful when you're drawing things where sometimes you draw things and you draw them and then shade them. When pastels, you kind of have to shade them and draw them at the same time, right? Because the pastel has to go down. You don't want too many layers. So let's just pretend like I've got the shadow here on a tree, and I'm going to use a really nice kind of soft peachy orange sky, which I would normally take more time to select the right one, but I'm just going to do this. And I've got this kind of orangey color here because it's maybe a nice brown colored tree, or maybe sunset has orange on it. Now I could sit here and color in the brown, but the other thing that's going to happen naturally with my pastels is that I have this light and dark going on, and now if I know that this produces this type of brown, which goes with it, I don't have to like layer a lot of brown and then get really muddy colors, because these will automatically kind of, they go together. I mean, from the beginning you've made it so that they go together. Now if this is more of a birch tree here, I can then come in these lighter colors, or let's just say it's gray and foggy out that day and you want to have a more misty effect of it. So when I come in here, you'll see that I have that starting to blend. When I do put a pure color next to these, they might seem like they have a lot of color in them. It's called a chromatic gray, right? But when I put a brighter color next to them, they'll go neutral real quickly because you're comparing it to a purer color. So when you do this, it gives you a little bit of structure with your color. Your color always works. You don't have like the wrong color in there, and it'll help you see your neutrals a little bit better. The best way to see neutrals if you're working with soft pastel is to go ahead and do a little bit of color play like this is, to see what kind of browns you get. I would also recommend that if you're kind of new to seeing colors this way, that you get, let me find something that will work here, that these colors can be hard to see when they look messy. And so it can really be helpful if you take two pieces of white paper and help you focus on what the color actually looks like. This is a foam core from another demonstration. But if I go like this, I can more easily see the orangey brown or the real nice plum shadows. If I go like this, I can more easily see this nice middle brown that I'm getting there that might be useful. So, you know, these colors can be kind of hard to think of. You're used to thinking of brown and gray and not yellow, violet, orange, blue, you know, odd mixes. So your eye just kind of glazes over this and has a hard time recognizing this is a violet or that is an orange. So if you put the white paper next to it, the orange and the blue and the color will pop out. I hope this helps you in experimenting with your pastels to get the idea of an OGV, uncommon triad, in your landscapes. I will say that when we start doing portraiture, that many portraits depend on the more deeper or lighter colors that you use on this. So landscapes are forgiving. When you start working with skin tones, that's when we have to like choose a little bit more carefully for us to understand where those colors are coming from. Have fun experimenting.